What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the B3 Podcast. I'm your host, Brett, and Tanner's here. Everyone else is working today. It's lame.
Losers.
Yeah. Dave Tollefson had it right. Just quit your job. It's easier.
It's way easier.
Yeah. We have our show partners, Elite Nutrition. Check them out at elitenutritionomaha.com. Use code B3 at checkout for 10% off, or go to the store in Omaha or Lincoln and yell B3.
Get a free shaker.
We also have Rosewood Block to make the best cutting boards and barbecue. Fully customizable. Check them out at rosewoodblock.com. Use code B3 at checkout for 10% off there also.
And
the real Midwest Mecca of Strength, Omaha Barbell. Check them out at obgym.com. Or just come in to their one great location and check us out. If you're at Tanner's store and you've never been here before, he does have some free week passes.
I do. You can handle those out.
You can come try
You said
it
a couple people. You said people have come in with them, so
I had a couple people sign up. I had a kid who hadn't been here for a couple of years come in and use it. I just have to keep notes of who's used them, so it doesn't turn into like every time they want to go to the gym, they use the free pass.
Come out to my store and grab one.
Yeah. So
it's a good idea.
Yeah. So don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Also, if you like what we're doing or don't, download us on the audio, subscribe on the YouTubes. We're trying to get more content up. Yeah, there's a thing over. Yeah, it's kind of hard. Like that's where it places the button over there, but it's kind of like if you're on your phone and watching it, it's hard to get to the button because when you try to touch the button, it brings up like your
settings or something.
Yeah. So
it's over here.
Yeah, kind of down over by Tanner, kind of somewhere over there. But yeah, like, subscribe, share. We appreciate it. Today we're gonna talk about something that's like Tanner's favorite thing in the world. Did you see this new report on the pyramids?
Yes.
About the cylinders that run under like 600 meters underground.
600 meters underground, and then
200. They're 80 meters cubical.
Yes.
So anybody who doesn't understand how far that is, 80 meters is like what 268 feet or 264 feet.
Yep.
And then like 600 meters down is like 18. What is that? Almost 2,000 feet.
Yeah.
Almost 2,000 feet underground.
There are 1,600 meters in a mile.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So a guy did a study using. It's almost like an ultrasound.
It's like a ground penetrating radar. It's way fancier.
It's like a mix of things.
Yeah.
And even Amber was talking about. She goes, "What do you think?" And I was like, "I don't know. The pyramids are a very strange thing."
So I still believe, and I believed before this, that they're a power system, that there's some kind that they generated power out of them.
So did you see where that guy built like a mock version, like a small mock version of
Chris? Yes, I know who you're talking about.
And it created vibration when he ran water through it. So then we watched part of one. So then Amber and I started like looking at some of the stuff, and they were talking about it as far as it being like a water system. But there's no sign like this. The guy was saying that there's no, because it couldn't have held water. But also, I don't know about degradation over how many years this has been.
So the thing about the pyramids is that if like whatever you learned in school, that they were built like 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, they took 20 years to build, which was the life cycle of one of the pharaohs. I can't remember which one, right? It's like took 20 years to build. Okay. Like none of that stuff makes sense. Like the amount of stones that are in there, like you couldn't do in 20 years.
Well, and some of the stone came from like 500 miles away.
Right.
And
weighed 300,000 pounds.
Now, are you talking about all of them or mainly like the Great Pyramid of Giza?
So also an interesting thing with the pyramids is that the newer the pyramid is, okay, the worse it is.
Oh, construction-wise?
Yes. So, like, so a lot of the pyramids will think, like, the newer pyramids, people will think were copycatted. Like, they were trying to copy Giza, right? They were trying to copy some of these things, but they weren't the actual ones that made them. I don't believe that they were made 3,000 to 5,000 years ago. And on the Sphinx, there has water erosion. So, the Sahara Desert...
So you think it was Atlantis? Are you one of the Atlantis believers?
I am an Atlantis believer. I think Atlantis was in one of two spots.
But so do you think? So you don't think the Egyptians built the pyramids?
No, they were built before them. So the Sphinx has water erosion on it. water erosion in the Sahara.
But I mean, could it have been a rainy area at some point?
It was. So at one point in time, the whole Sahara, like when they do like LiDAR from the air, like the Sahara has the most like bodies of water of any place in the world, but they're just dried up, right? So it would like it goes through a cycle. I think about every 20,000 years. I think it goes through a cycle to where it's like a green, lush, fertile ground. Like people don't understand like climate change. Yes, climate change happens naturally all the time. Things change, they go through cycles. And that one, like it's about every 20,000 years. So if you could try and go back to when the Sphinx would have been built, like it would have been built during a time of when it was rainy there. Right, to have that water erosion constantly. Because I mean, it's not like it never rains there, but not very freaking often. Not enough for water erosion. So I just think they were pre-built by somebody, and I think it was power. But we, as humans today, we're combustible, and we're combustible engine, right? We're combustible energy. We create explosion for energy. That's not the only power source there is. So when we're looking for things, I think we look for things that like us. Like when we're looking for technology, we look for things like us, but it could have been something different. I think like it was probably hydrogen or something.
I thought they disproved the Atlantis thing, that there's proof of like time frames of the Egyptians doing it.
I don't think Atlantis built the pyramids. I think it was
I thought they had time dated some of them to being.
So the thing about time dating, when you carbon date something, you can't carbon date stone. Okay, you can't carbon date it. You can only carbon date things that are, you can only carbon date things that break down. So I can carbon date wood, right? I can carbon date other things, but I can't carbon date stone. So you don't actually carbon date the object. That you wouldn't carbon date the pyramid, you would carbon date the things you find around the pyramid. So yes, they could have been 5,000 years old. That was the last time someone was there. Does that make sense? Like the last time someone was in there or whatever. So you can't, it's hard to know. So you have to use other things to try and figure out how old they are. Like water erosion would be a good one on the Sphinx. Like it had to be at a time where it was rainy enough to have water erosion. And that's pretty common, like pretty universally accepted that there is water erosion on the Sphinx. Now, why or what is the argument? But yeah, they way predate.
Do you think it was built by slaves? Because then there's some that show there were camps built around it that was built by, if we're still on the Egyptian train.
No.
It was built by Egyptian, like, skilled laborers.
So the stones, just to give an idea, the largest stone ever moved in modern times, I think, is like 600,000 pounds. Okay. And it was a stone that is at a museum in LA, Natural Museum, I think, in LA. And they had to build a trailer around the stone with like 98 tires and a trailer around it. And then they had to drive like just a few miles an hour on certain roads, but other roads couldn't handle it to move it. That's with modern technology. Right now, you're telling me that some of these stones, like in the King's Chamber, I'll look up the exact, like here in a second. But the stone in the King's Chamber is hundreds of thousands of pounds. That is 100 feet up in the air, right? How the fuck are slaves going to get it there? Like,
was there a system of ramps? They've talked about systems of ramps, zigzags and cylindrical or spiral ramps.
So if you used a ramp at a degree in which you could move it, the ramp would have more physical material. Now, mind you, to build the ramp has to be on something harder than the stone that you're pushing, or as equally as hard. If anything's softer, it'll crush it. Okay, so you would have to have the amount of stone would be like 6 times the amount of stone in the pyramid to build a ramp long enough to be able to reach that. So where'd the fucking ramp go?
Yeah.
The slave theory makes zero sense.
So you think it was built by, if it was built by Egyptians. It was Egyptian like skilled laborers.
No, was not. I don't think it's possible.
So you don't think the Egyptians did it at all? Like you don't have any...
Zero. There's not a chance they built it. There's not a chance that it was built the way we say it was, but in the time period that we say it was built.
Well, and here's my thing. So it was built, what, in 2500 BC?
Yeah, like 4,500 years ago.
Yeah. So are we naive enough to think that we're the only people that were ever smart enough to come up with technology?
I believe that we've had way advanced technology.
That's what I'm saying. So let's say it was the Egyptians. They could have. Why couldn't they have had a crane or could have had computer? You know what I mean? How could they? You know what I mean? How do we not?
So it wasn't done by slaves then?
Yeah, no. I'm just saying in general. Like, are we as a society? Because you know they always like, it's like they have the caveman commercials. You know what I mean? Like, but are we that naive to think that we're the only people in 4,500 years that were smart enough to come up with any of this technology?
You
know what I mean? Like, who are we? Why would you think that we're the only people who could come up with a computer?
So the King's Chamber, the stones weighed between 50 and 70 tons.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are up.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is like,
okay, so you're 100% right. I do not believe that I agree with you. I don't know if you're 100% right because I can't prove that I'm right. But I 100% agree with you that, yes, at some point in time, we had way more advanced technology. I don't think it was at the time of 2500 BC. I don't think it was then. I think it was way predated to then. So at about 10,600 years ago, about 11,000 years ago to 12,000 years ago, there's a period of time called the Younger Dryas. And the Younger Dryas is a very cataclysmic, like there were comets, volcanoes, all kinds of shit happening, all kinds of cataclysms happening on the earth. At that around that point in time, the glaciers were about 2 miles high in North America, going all the way down to where Minneapolis would be today. Okay. And northern Europe and that area was just covered in ice. Okay. During this impact, basically the comets, the Younger Dryas impact theory is that comets hit and basically eroded all of that water at one time, all that ice. So at that point in time, the ocean's level rose like 400 feet. So that's a lot. That's a lot of land that was covered. Well, that water it went all over the world in different spots. Now, spots that weren't affected would be like Africa, right? So you can see Africa's animals, zebras, elephants, lions, all that shit. Almost all those animals were also in North America, but in a hairy version. But they were all wiped out like in a snap by this Younger Dryas impact. Like we did not hunt mammoths to extinction. Sure. Like that did not happen. There were 4 different elephants in North America, 4 different kinds of elephants. There were the saber-toothed tigers, giant sloths, fucking woolly rhinos, short-faced bears. There were all kinds of crazy dire wolves, all kinds of crazy shit in North America, all wiped out at the same time. Well, I think at that same time is what ended civilization. So that ice age, like I think there was something prior to, like I think there was a time of technological advancement during the ice age, and then at that impact wiped it out. Like even if you go back to the Bible or the 120 some stories of a flood, I think that's what did it. So at that point in time, I think at 4,500 years ago, we were still rebuilding, right? So I think that there is some advanced technology that you can find, and some like the Perry Reese map. So a Perry Reese map is dated to thousands of years ago, before we had longitude, and it has things in America, in South America that are 100% right. It has Antarctica on this map, and we didn't find Antarctica until the 1800s.
So where do you cite your things from, your researches?
Graham Hancock's really good. Graham Hancock has done a ton of research. He has his own theories, but he bases a lot of stuff in research. Randall Carlson is really big on the Younger Dryas impact theory. And he the guy's very intelligent. Like, he's very intelligent, and he will go through and cite things and show where he believes his proof is at. He has an area up in Washington that was washed out that he believes is basically the comet was like North Montana, Canada, and it broke, and I think it's Lake Montezuma, they say, like filled with ice dam and then broke, and this area is all washed out. But he's like, no, this happened in a week. This happened in a fucking week. Like, you can look at the erosion, it happened in a week. And he'll show you just the amount of destruction that happened with the water.
And no one's argued his theories?
They argued the shit out of him, but it's kind of becoming... It's really hard because the people who teach you and write the books don't want to be wrong.
Well, and how do you know who's right and who's wrong?
You don't. You go. So I can just try and use common sense and say slaves didn't take these stones that weighed 50 to 70 tons and roll them on wood. Now, mind you, the wood in that area at the time wasn't even hard enough to do. Okay. It was like a soft wood, but let's just throw that, like they could not move stones 500 miles by slave labor, pushed on wood logs where they rolled through the terrain and then lifted them hundreds of feet or 100 plus feet in the air. Like, they didn't, like, it can't be done the way they said it was done. It's not possible. Jimmy Corsetti does a really good job of showing like modern machinery trying to move stones that don't weigh that much and just cranes falling over. You know what I mean? Like, it's not possible. Like, even with modern machinery, we couldn't do it. Like, we can't do it. We can't build a pyramid today.
You don't think so?
Not the way they did it. And not the way they did it to, like, I think the, like, line to line is like...
There's only like 3 feet of difference, I think.
I think it's 3 inches.
Is it 3? I thought it was 3, but yeah.
I mean, it's very, very,
and it's
very
directly
small.
And it's directly due, like, it faces like north and south, like directly, like exactly. Now they say the Orion's belt thing. It's not exactly Orion's belt, how they line up.
Not today.
Well, and I mean, I think everything moves around anyway. I mean, the Earth has been when was that huge tsunami
In
it was
Japan?
like in 7th or 8th grade, and they think that even moved the Earth off its axis a little bit.
Well, the Earth moves off its axis all the time because we rotate on a wobble. Mm-hmm. So we have a wobble. So our North Star now is Polaris, but it hasn't always been. The North Star changes because we wobble. So, and we also rotate. We rotate around. So if you can sometimes, like, let's just say you think something was on an equinox. Serpent's Mound in Ohio is a big giant snake, and it's either Graham thinks it was either pointed towards an equinox, like a spring equinox, and for those of you who don't know, equinox is when we're equal parts light and dark. So in the spring, it's around March 22nd is where we're 12 hours light, 12 hours dark, right? And then in the spring, we gain time, and in the winter, we go back. So the fall equinox, then we start going back from there. There's also a solstice, and the solstice is like the longest and shortest day of the year. So the longest day of the year is like June 20th to 22nd, and the shortest day of the year is like December 22nd. So it's in those times. So like some of these things they believe were pointed at a solstice or at an equinox because they were like trying to tell time. So they knew. But they'll be just a few degrees off, right? It's like, okay, well, go back in time to when it wasn't. And that's when you can, that's an idea of maybe that's the timestamp of when it was built.
Yeah, that's all. The pyramids are very strange. It's a very strange thing.
I mean,
but even like, and Amber and I were talking like, why is no one's like, hey, my great great uncle's brother's sister's nephew's cousin was there when they built them, right? You know what I mean? Like,
so there are no hieroglyphics. I mean, I shouldn't say no, but that's probably
discovered.
dangerous. There are if there are any, there aren't many hieroglyphics of the pyramids actually being built, right? There aren't pictures. There are pictures of all the hieroglyphics are pictures of a lot of things, but not of like the pyramids actually being built. Does that make sense? And like there are no hieroglyphics. I don't believe there are any hieroglyphics inside of the pyramids. Like inside of them, I don't think there are any.
But now if the Egyptians came later, like you're saying, why wouldn't they have put hieroglyphics inside?
So there are some like at the entrance, I think, but they were done. They were done later, they believe, because they're not right. Like it's not the right direction. Like they wrote something backwards. So they think it was someone trying to act like something was there, but it wasn't actually there. Khufu. I think it was Khufu is the one that they said it was built in 20 years.
Yes, I think we just saw a thing about that.
Yeah, there's no way. It's not possible. Like, it's not possible.
Well, and then I've heard 200 years, and I've heard 1,000 years, and I was like, well, 1,000 years is like, there's no way that wouldn't have got fucked up between then. Like, to rely on someone for 1,000 years to work on something is pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm not saying there wasn't. So, I mean, honestly, if you're going to go, if you like to know my theory, I believe that you have a better chance that humans had a deeper connection with their own brains.
You're talking about like telepath?
I believe you have a better chance of them moving it telepathically than by moving it by slave labor. Like, I think telepathically you can't prove it didn't happen. Slave labor, I feel like you can prove it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like, I just to think that we didn't have the technology that there is now, then everyone was just dumb for like 5,000 years.
Well, but you have to go back. Do you know how old the oldest Homo sapien is that they found?
Well, yeah, but in general, I'm just saying, even if you're talking about the suspected times of the pyramids.
So I think.
And why does the Egyptian government not let them dig and do any more research? Like this most recent one that just came out this past week, right? That was the one where the guy found the columns. So what is it? He said there's 5 structures inside that are equally spaced and equally built with sloped roofs.
Yep.
Which where there's some of the stone away from it on the Pyramid of Giza, you can see one of those sloped roof structures. I assume that's one of the ones he's talking about. And then is it 6 columns that go down?
13.
Is it 13 columns?
I think it was 13 columns.
Going into 2 cubed rooms.
And the cubes are up to 2 kilometers deep. They're 600 meters to 2 kilometers deep.
Yeah, and the cubes themselves are what, 80 meters in size? So 80 by 80, I'm assuming it's a cube.
Yeah, something like that.
So that's like 220 some feet by 220 some feet, which is also a massive room.
Yeah.
And then there's something wrapped around the columns.
Yes.
But they didn't really specify what that was.
They probably can't tell.
But they won't let them dig.
No.
So then to think also that they dug in sand that didn't collapse for a mile underground.
Well, it wasn't sand, probably.
Well, I'm just saying, as of right now, it's sand.
Yeah. And see, and that's the thing is, as of right now, it's sand. But like, so the oldest Homo sapien is, I think, 310,000 years old. Is the oldest Homo sapien that they found. That's not to say that's not Homo erectus. That's not any prior ones that have been around for over 1 million years, right? But Homo sapiens 310,000 years old. So I think, in my personal opinion, is that we have been maybe not to this extent, right? I think we probably did it in a different way, but humans have had. It's not been a linear. Like, everything you learn is that we went from Homo erectus and then we stood up more and we got a bigger brain in Homo sapien, and we've been on this steady increase from then till now, right? And to your point, how the fuck we've had the same brain capacity, right, for 300,000 years, and this is the first time that we've ever like been good? Like, bullshit. Like, there have been times all throughout history, in my opinion, that we have reached technological advances. Now, I don't know what those technological advances are, and I think it's naive to think that it's just Like combustible energy is the only way. That's what we do, right? Is combustible energy. But I think there's other ways that they could be advanced. Graham Hancock has two seasons on Netflix, and he talks about some of these ancient structures, like some like in Thailand that there are chambers inside a mountain that date 30,000 years ago.
Well, I mean, look at like Leonardo da Vinci. Like he was a super intelligent guy, and he had several ideas of flight and different things.
Yep.
So yeah, but why I don't understand how a combustible engine when it was built in whatever that was, the
1800s.
Was it the late 1800s, early 1900s, whenever that was built, to actually move a vehicle? Why is that the first one? Like you said, like people were smart. That, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't believe it was. And then people are like, well, where's the evidence? Well, once again, if you believe in the younger Dryas impact theory and the ocean floor.
Well, I was just going to say the ocean, would they say we know more about space than we know about the ocean?
Well, the ocean rose 400 feet. Like, just to put in perspective, if the ocean rose 400 feet today, Grand Island would be a port. Okay? It would be a port city. Like, that's a lot of water.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of major cities, even today, are around bodies of water, right? They're around coastlines for transportation and for trade and for things like that. So, like, the amount of destruction that could have happened, like, it could easily go away. Just Google pictures of Detroit if you want a modern idea. Google pictures of Detroit, of neighborhoods they just let go, and look at what nature's done to that in 20 years. Like, nature, like trees, like, it just consumes buildings. Like, and that's 20 years. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of years or tens of thousands of years. Like, plastic, even though plastic doesn't biodegrade, it's 144 years, and we think that's a long time. So there would be no evidence of plastic. Like, if anyone ever had plastic, we would have zero evidence of it, right? Metal, like, all this stuff will decay and erode. You're looking for things.
Well, especially if it's under like severe heat
Or severe water, or just the amount of burial, right? Like Göbekli Tepe. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard that, but I don't know much about it, though.
So Göbekli Tepe is a massive stone, a megalithic structure, a massive stone structure they found in Turkey. Well, it dates to 11,800 years ago, right? Well, 11,800 years ago, we had no farming. We were hunter-gatherers. We were just roamers. How are you going to build this giant megalithic structure? And in the megalithic structure, when I was talking about constellations, so we rotate, and we'll go through like the time of Taurus, we'll go through the time of Scorpio, we'll go through the time of Cancer over thousands of years. Like, we rotate through the different constellations. Well, on one of the piers in Göbekli Tepe, there are three animals there, and they, like, Graham Hancock and other people believe that there was a timestamp. Like, they were telling you what the constellations look like at that time, so you knew, and it was buried. It was buried on purpose. Like, they proved that, like, someone, like, they, like, buried it to get, like, they buried it to preserve it. And that was 11,800 years ago. Well, how the fuck did they do that? So, like, there's, like...
Well, you have Stonehenge.
Yeah.
I mean...
Which is unexplainable.
And then do you think they're all tied together? You think Stonehenge and the pyramids and all these crazy... Now, didn't they say there's some pyramids in Mexico also?
Very old pyramids in Mexico. Yep. They have there's two of them. They're also aligned constellation-wise. They're more of a step pyramid. So in Mexico and in Central and South America, they have the step, not the flat.
Well, in the pyramids, like the Great Pyramid of Giza isn't real flat either, though.
Well, but you have to remember that it was covered in
lime. Was it limestone? Like white limestone?
Or marble. It was covered in stone, but that has been taken.
Yeah.
They used it for resources. That way, it was a very smooth structure at one point in time.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all very crazy, and it's...
Well, and some people are like, well, why do we care? It's like, well...
That's not necessarily like I'm like losing sleep over it. It's just very fascinating.
Well, the reason why I care is like people are like, oh, we're gonna get like global warming's gonna take us out. Global warming has never taken humans out. Global cooling has. If you wanna go back to times where we have problems, it's global cooling, right? So we have these giant genetic bottle gaps or bottlenecks, right? So like everyone who has blue eyes, you have blue eyes? Mm-hmm. Everyone who has blue eyes has a common ancestor 10,000 years ago. Okay, we had a huge genetic bottleneck because of death. Because
I just change colors. Mine are green sometimes. Sometimes they're blue.
But they have common ancestors now where they have like the Adam and Eve. Like Adam, they believe all men have a common ancestor between 160,000 and 200,000 years old, and all women's common ancestor is 180 to 240,000 years old. Like that, a single common ancestor. Like that's where it comes back to in Africa.
Well, and that's like when, like Amber had said, how is there no bloodline? You know, if someone doesn't become extinct and they keep producing, or do you think? When the pyramids, let's even say the Egyptians built the pyramids. Let's just go with this.
Can't do that.
Just shut up.
Okay.
But you know what I mean? Even though it's still 4,500 years ago at this point, no one, you know what I mean? Like there was no like historical like wipeout of humanity. Right?
I mean, all of the wars, but yeah.
But technically, right? Like there's some bloodline that has lived through this entire thing.
Yeah.
And no stories were passed down. Because I mean, the Bible has been passed down.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's 2,000 years old.
Yeah. And you can look at that how you want to. I mean, obviously there's
in the Bible,
there's plenty of stories of how different books of the Bible were left out based on, you know what I mean? There's things that have been left out of the Bible based on who put it together.
Kind of, yeah.
There was, I mean, it's probably not every book of the Bible is probably, their book is in the Bible that was supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like someone had something to gain when they put it together.
So when you go to the Bible, the three books, right?
You're talking about like Matthew, Mark, Luke.
Matthew, Mark, and Luke, right?
Wasn't John in there too?
I think there's only 3.
Oh.
Matthew, Mark, and Luke. So the reason that those are in there is because they were historically accurate. And
there's like 3 different people that didn't know each other but had the exact same
they
stories.
wrote their stories, right? Yeah. And they could be verified. So some of the older books that have been removed from the Bible, they weren't written at the time of Christ. They were written in the 3rd or 4th century. And the reason why they know they were written in the 3rd or 4th century is because they use this technique with names. So like, let's just say you have a book about Jesus, but it was written in the 3rd or 4th century, and a lot of those were written in Egypt. But Jesus would be the only name that was right, or Jesus and Mary. Everything else would be an Egyptian name from the 3rd or 4th century, right? So, like when they have, who was I'm drawing a blank. You have my brain going in too many different directions. The one who sold him out.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. Why can't I think of it? Judas.
So like there's a book of Judas, right? And there's a book of Mary Magdalene. But those weren't written by someone with direct knowledge of them. They were written centuries later, stories about them. So that's the reason why they're not in there. Some of those books are in the Ethiopian Bible. There is a book that I think should be in there, which is the book of Enoch. And the book of Enoch was Noah's great-grandfather, and he was one of 2 people who passed into heaven without dying. So there's a book of Enoch that I think should be in there. They reference Enoch and they reference the book in the Old Testament, but the book of Enoch isn't there. But I think Enoch 1 or Enoch 2 is in the Ethiopian Bible, and they were in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I think Enoch 1 was in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So I've read Enoch. I've read the books, and those talk about kind of like aliens. Right? They're the watchers, the lowercase g gods that came down from the heavens. And they came down from the heavens and they liked human women. So they basically raped them. And in trade for that, they gave us technology. They gave us farming. They gave us medicine. They gave us government. They gave us these different technologies. Right? Well, that kind of goes with the Anunnaki too. There's similar type stories. They're different characters, but they're similar stories. Well, then they created the Nephilim, and the Nephilim were like demigods. And you can go into the Bible, and those like the Tower of Babel and things like that were like Nephilim. We were getting too close to God, so God broke us up and split us into 12 different languages, so we couldn't communicate anymore. That could also be, some people would say, well, maybe we were telepathic and that was what God was breaking up and gave us language so we couldn't talk because we were advancing too far. So some of those things all like tie back into some of these other stories. So like, and that's where the flood was to wipe out Nephilim blood. Like that was the idea. When Jesus descended into the underworld, he basically told the 12 Nephilim that they had chained up down there, like basically I won. When they came back up, when they were talking about Jesus's rise, they were speaking in tongues, right, in the Bible, and those were the languages of the Nephilim of that God broke in the Tower of Babel. Now you can believe that literally, or you can say this may have been true. And then there are all these languages that pop up around that area in Egypt, in Turkey, that are they're isolates. So they're languages that didn't come from anywhere. They can't show where it came from, and it never went anywhere. So they're just isolated languages that some people have no idea what they mean. Like their guess, right? But we don't have a Rosetta Stone for some of these languages. So it's just very interesting when you kind of start tying all this shit back together, and a flood, which is universally known that there was a flood. There's 128 flood stories. And then you have this Younger Dryas impact theory. And then you're like, okay, what all happened with humanity? And some people will say it was a restart. Like Adam and Eve they weren't
the first human forms.
They weren't the first human forms. It was a rebirth of humanity.
Well, that's where like I even like the technology thing. Like, did they get really? Were their computers 2,500 years ago, and then they're like, well, we need a reset, and then we're like, whoop, and it was kind of reset, and then like you said, they're getting too far. Now this is that's really getting into the weeds on that deal. But I find it to be completely naive that we're like the smartest civilization that's ever lived.
Well, and I just think humans get reset. I think we've constantly been reset.
And like, let's say if it was the telepathic part of it, that is like a massive form of intelligence.
So the burning bush in Moses is a DMT plant. Okay. Like ayahuasca. Based on what the plant is.
Based on what Moses told you?
Based on the drawings of the bush. Like it's a DMT plant, right?
So it's like hitting hallucinogens?
Well, you go back to like Egypt, and they're like, was it like a hallucinogenic snail that they had? Like they like look in some of these like drinking things or whatever. There's like hallucinogens that were in there. If you go back to ayahuasca is a root that they found, that the ancients found in the Amazon, that so if you drink DMT, we have an enzyme in our stomach that it's not effective. Nothing will happen. So you smoke it, right? Well, the ayahuasca root counteracts that enzyme. So when you drink it, you have like a 4 to 6 hour trip. And there we're talking about their shamans and how they were connected to the earth, and that they would basically use these ayahuasca trips to like reach other levels. Like if you were thinking like you go on a trip and you get to here, and then like you go on a trip and then they're at the mountain, and then you go on a trip and like that's what they're trying to do, is get in to another world. And then DMT, when you die, you have a massive amount of DMT that enters your brain, like a shit ton. So like for me, like if you believe in heaven, I believe like that's how we transfer. Like our DMT, like that's like our soul passing, right? That's our pathway. If you believe in alternate timelines, you can also say that. So they have people on DMT trips, and they've talked to them. In the UK, they were doing a study only on what the trip was. Okay, so very interesting study. Like, what'd you see? And some people, they'll see a serpent. Some people will see geometric shapes, but other people live literally entire lives in 10 minutes, right? Like, they're born, they're a kid, they're raised, they find the love of their life, they get married, they have kids, they grow and they die, and it's like 10 minutes. And like, so it's been theorized by, some people, like that's an alternate timeline. Like you're just seeing your alternate, what happened in another timeline of you. So but that DMT release is just, to me, super interesting. Like, it's something that they show that happens when you die. So this giant DMT release, and then you're gone.
Wow, you're really deep in the bushes over here.
Dude, yeah.
Whew, man.
I love to learn.
Yeah.
I love to learn. I listen to so many different things. I do so many, and like I was showing you earlier, like, hey, like, I think this is interesting. I'm not posting it because I have to verify it first. Right. Like, so like, it's not that I just like listen to one person. Like, I listen to somebody and then they get me like to a certain level. And then like, I just keep going.
Well, and the hard part with all of it is, even Graham and all those other guys, is like, it's really hard to 100% prove any of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying any of that. I just said it's one of those things like we're never going to actually know.
Well,
until maybe when you die, you get 20 questions with God and you're like, so.
You know, I have one question I'm asking God, like, right away. Like what the fuck? Like, as I've gotten older, like, my hair leaves my head and like comes to my ears and nose. Like, that is just a fucked up thing to do to someone as they're aging. You know what I mean? Like,
try to protect your hearing and your nose as you get older.
Yeah, I just like, it's, to me, like, that's my question. That's my question for God. It's
maybe
like,
it's just your hair's running away from your face.
Yes, it might be, but it's going up my nose. Like, I have nose hairs that I swear to God touch my brain. They're so fucking long, and like little ear nests sometimes. Like I
know.
should.
Amber just like rips them out of me. She was like, "You have ear hair."
Yeah, I shouldn't have to shave my ears.
Here's a question. Do you look at people's ears?
No,
I don't either. Amber's like, people look at people's ears. I was like, I don't ever look at people's ears.
I have never looked. Well, I mean, I look at one person's ears because they're really small.
Well, yeah. But yeah, I was like, I don't ever look at people's ears.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just a girl thing. Maybe they look at people's ears.
Yeah, so that's my question for God.
But yeah, I just think.
Do you think it's a waste of a question?
If you only had one, then yes. Yeah, I think it's just it's a lot of cool, like, fascinating stuff. I don't think it's like conspiracy theories. You know what I mean? Like, it's just all fascinating. I mean, the hard part is that we'll never 100% know. There's a lot of great theories and a lot of great, you know what I mean, out there.
So to me, I don't.
I mean, are you gonna be let down? And you get there and you're like, God, how are the pyramids built? And like, dude, these 6 dudes just like picked that fucking block up and carried it over there, and then like he just like shows you a home video, and you're like, fuck.
I mean.
You're like, that fucking sucks.
Well, so
like, it's gonna be like a super lame answer and all this, like, you're hoping it's gonna be like telepathic. He's just floating it over there. Then they're like, oh, these guys just carried it. You guys in the late 1900s were pussies.
I mean, that could be true. There is a theory that like
the giants built them.
Yeah, that the third, like, this is multiple cultures through around the world think that the third reiteration of humans were giants. Right. And like, I have a encyclopedia of giants.
Like, well, your head probably came from there.
Probably.
Yeah.
That there's all kinds of giant stories with Native Americans in the U.S. Like, there are some, like, if you just want to dig into giants, like, if you want to go down like a rabbit hole that is just kind of fun, dig into fucking giants in North America. Like the
Sasquatch, bro.
Yeah. But like, to me, it's like not a matter of really being right or wrong. It's a matter of knowing that for me, it's a matter of, I know that what they've told us is not accurate, right? It's like, I know for a fact it is not accurate. What I don't 100%.
Well, you don't actually 100% know it's not accurate.
I do.
You don't. Like we said, we don't know that guys weren't just super strong then and carried them over there. We don't know that.
Well, then it would be giants. Like, the human capacity still had a limit.
What if Superman's based off a real person?
And Superman just flew down here?
But you get what I'm saying? Like,
from the planet Krypton?
Yeah, but we don't 100% know. That's what makes it a cool thing to look into, because you don't 100% know.
Well, yes. And I just believe we should question everything. But like I was trying to say, I got off on a tangent. But what I was trying to say earlier is that what's going to end us is probably a meteor. And I don't think meteor is going to end humanity. Humanity has done a very good job of surviving. If there's nothing else we're good at, is we're good at fucking making it.
Yeah,
okay?
well, like cockroaches, Twinkies, and people.
Yeah, like, we're good
and
at
turtles.
And alligators.
Yeah, there's like a couple like 200-year-old turtles out there.
Yeah. We're good at surviving, right? So I like whatever is going to take us out, to me, that's going to knock us back is going to be something like a meteor. Like when they were making fun of Space Force, I'm like, no, like every June and October we pass through the Taurid meteor stream, which is the meteor that hits Earth, that have hit Earth, and we pass through it twice a year, one of the way and one of the other way coming back. And at that point in time, like there's debris everywhere. You can go back to Tunguska in the early 1900s, which was an airburst over Siberia that flattened like 100 square miles of forest, like just flattened the trees. Like that happens over London or New York City or somewhere else. Like that's a different fucking story than happening in fucking Siberia. You know, so like those are the types of things that I think about. Well, how did humanity get advanced? What took them out? Because can we prevent that from happening again?
Yeah, and that's why I will say I don't think we're the smartest humans to ever exist.
I'm not. I would just say that we're probably one of them.
Yeah, we're probably the upper echelon, but I think that there's other. Well, and the thing is too is like I just saw a thing last week that they could see into a black hole, and there's a whole nother galaxy in a black hole.
Dude, time.
So
the space travel and like when you like if you're going to wormhole travel, which is the only way I think to get across space and to be able to make it back. So like you could make it across, like theoretically you can make it across the galaxy if you were in a relatively short period of time. If you were traveling at like 99.99999% the speed of light, we can't. There are too many paradoxes that happen if we travel past the speed of light, so they don't know that we can travel past the speed of light. There's things that
and
get
what's the
thrown
speed
off.
of light?
I don't know. I can Google it real quick. But if we we made it across the galaxy and came back, it would be like 1,000,000 years in the future, and there'd be no one to tell. You know, so like it's really impossible to do some of that like deep space time travel unless it's kind of a one way.
Yeah.
We could be seated too. Like humans could be
The speed of this is 186,000 miles per second.
yeah.
That's fast.
Right, but at that point in time, the reason why you can go in a longer distance, theoretically, is because you literally compress time. Like in that, what's that movie with Interstellar?
Oh, I didn't see Interstellar.
I think it's Interstellar, but like it's a theory. Like a lot of this shit can't be proven. It's just theory. But like if you're traveling that fast, you literally compress time down. So like in Interstellar, like they're on a planet and they're there for we're here for 5 minutes, 5 years passes on Earth, right? Like time changes. Like time is not constant. Time is constant here, but when you leave here, time changes, or depending on how fast you're traveling, time changes.
Yeah. There's a lot of mysteries of the universe out there.
There are.
And here's one for you. I asked one of my clients, do you think God is the God of all universes, or is he just the God of Earth? Is there different gods in different universes? Or do you think there's only one God created all the universes?
I think there's one God that created all of the universes. So
do you think Jesus came here and then he went to multiple other planets too? Because to think there's life here and not life anywhere else is also silly, I think, too. It's a lot of wasted space.
There are now.
And I'm not questioning, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, do you believe that he's the God of the entire universe, or there's just a God for each planet?
I would guess that like if you have a Jesus, like Jesus coming to Earth, like that would be a necessity. And I don't know if everyone needs that necessity, but humans were in a spot where we needed like redeemed.
So do you think that it's one for the whole universe?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just throwing another mystery into the puzzle, you know?
And it's crazy because the Big Bang Theory needs a miracle to start, right? Something came from nothing. But also that that we came from like a pin drop, right? And then we just exploded out. And then at some point in time, it comes back. So the other crazy thing to think is how many times has this happened? You know what I mean? Like over an infinite amount of time, like was there a big bang that exploded and then at some point in time it reaches the end and theoretically it comes back and compresses in on itself. Now that's, could be trillions of years. Who knows? But it's just weird to think like there's things that are so much bigger than us. And that's why I like thinking about it, because like we kind of feel like we're the center of the world, humans. Yeah. Humans and Earth, like humans at Earth, America, like we feel like we're the center of everything. And I just think there's so much more out there, and we're just like a freaking, like not even a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just fun, kind of interesting stuff to look at, because like I said, we can all.
If you want to have an idea of space, they did a thing in the desert. It's on YouTube, and they were showing like the size of the desert, like if you put to scale Earth as a marble. Okay, if Earth is a marble in the size, like it's a 7 miles of desert around is our galaxy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's Earth as a marble.
And that's this galaxy, like I said, not the one they saw in like a, a black hole or whatever.
Right.
So I don't know. It's fun stuff to look at and theorize, because that's all we can do is theorize on it, because no one's got the.
But I do believe that the pyramids were some kind of power plant. I do believe
there's a lot of people I think that believe that
there are some kind of power generation. Just like when we're looking for a life on other planets, we're looking for hydrogen-based creatures, right? Well, it would be hard for us to, let's just say, like have a carbon-based creature or something else. Like I don't know if we would know what we're looking for, because we don't know what it is. So like when you're looking at the pyramid, like it's not a combustible engine, right? So it's hard for a lot of people over the last thousands of years to say this was power, right? Because it's not power that we didn't have power then, like 4,500 years ago, we didn't have power, right? Actually, there's some weird shit with like Iraqi batteries or something. There's some weird shit like where they have little chunks of power. But the Baghdad battery, sorry. But it's just amazing. Like if we're not looking, like if you don't recognize what it could be, it's hard to figure out what it is. And that's where we're at to the point now, is that people have just not taken the word for it and just keep questioning and questioning and questioning. And now it's like, it's becoming way more universally accepted that it is some kind of power source. We don't recognize it. We don't know exactly how it worked, but I think we can recognize the fact that there was a power source for one reason or another.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a completely different topic than normal, but I saw the findings last week were kind of cool. But like I said,
they were really sweet.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So yeah, if you're ever wondering, it's not hard. You can find a ton of stuff about the pyramids and a ton of different, about all of it.
If you just want some people to start off with, I would say like Graham Hancock for just like ancient technology.
And he's been on Rogan a few times, right?
Yep. He's a really good guy. Randall Carlson, who I've met, he's really good at like the impact theory, and he has his own theory on Atlantis. I was pretty much sold on his theory, and then I continued to listen, and Jimmy Corsetti has another kind of theory on Atlantis. Jimmy Corsetti is also someone who's really good to watch too.
Well, there you go. There's stuff to watch, but we just have to do something a little different, because something that's, I don't know, very interesting. And
you just pulled my string. You're like, let's see what this fucking psycho goes.
And we talk about strength sports. We might find out like later on, just like 3 dudes just carried these fucking rocks and set them, and we're gonna feel like a total bunch of pussies in this whole thing. So
that could be true.
Yeah.
All of our PRs don't matter because these bitches were carrying 50-ton stones.
Yeah. But we appreciate you guys listening. Like I said, like, subscribe, share, follow the YouTube's audio, and we'll see you guys next time.